Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the New England Racing Show, Manchester, New Hampshire, Channel 23, also on YouTube, and like us on Facebook. Well, Waterford rained out this past weekend, so we're going to show you the last batch of interviews from the Racers Expo. We have John Zych, last year's NEMA champ, Sean Foster, SK Modified Racer at Stafford, and he has his own show on YouTube called Short Track Racer, very entertaining. Chris Perley, the multi-time ISMA champ, and a couple of young racers, Mikey Toner Jr. and a young lady, Madison Birchall, who race at Seekonk in mini cups. So let's get right to it.
Try to run as many races as we can. That's the goal. Hopefully the whole schedule, but there might be some conflicts with work that prevent us from doing that. But that's the goal, and obviously win as many as we can.
How hungry have you become?
Extremely hungry. I think it was evident this past year. We had our best year. Some of that is experience, but some of it was from frustration in years past where we just weren't as successful as we wanted to be. So extremely hungry, and I think that's what it takes to win races and be successful at the end of the year.
Now, the opposite end of that question is how much smarter of a race car driver you've become.
I'd say a lot smarter. I mean, I think the results have been better, and there's a number of reasons for that. But staying out of trouble, taking care of your equipment, and I think trying to put yourself in the right position at the right time of the race is a factor. So I think the experience level has helped that a lot.
For somebody that strolls across this, let's say on a YouTube, and sees our interview and doesn't understand or thinks that midget racing involves little people, how would you explain to them what the NEMA series represents and what it means to guys like you to go out there and race week in and week out with those high-speed pocket rockets?
Well, open wheel racing to me is very, very exciting, and it's very different than what you see on television with the NASCAR stuff. The cars are faster than anything else in really the Northeast with the wings, with the exception of maybe the super modifieds on big tracks. But on the smaller tracks, we're just as fast, sometimes faster. So the speed is really the big thing, and that catches a lot of people's attention. The power to weight ratio is like second to none, and you could spin the tires all the way down the straightaway. So I think that's really exciting, and really the dynamics of the open wheel car, seeing the driver, seeing the wheels moving, is exciting, and that's what always drew me to open wheel racing.
And yet you talk about the fact that it's so fast. As a driver, you're also just inches above the pavement. Do you feel that speed sensation, especially when you're on the big tracks?
I think you do. I mean, you're so close to the motor, and they're pretty small. So you're fully involved. It's like you're sitting on a bar stool and going 150 miles an hour. But a place like Thompson, for example, with the long straightaways, yeah, you feel the speed. You can actually feel the wing sucking the helmet off your head. I mean, it's fast, but I don't think you get that in really any other type of car because of the open cockpit.
We followed your career, and as you say, you're getting to be a smarter race car driver. You're getting to be a hungrier race car driver. What's the end goal for you?
Well, that's a great question. I just enjoy racing, and I'd take any opportunity that came to me. But first and foremost, it's family and work, and those allow me to race. But I love racing. I love cars. If it has four wheels and a steering wheel, I'm interested in it. So you never know what could happen, but those two things, family and work, come first. But whatever opportunity I have, I'd probably jump on.
See, what interests me is the fact that your generation, your self-professed love of cars, you have gone from, in my generation, that profession of love was the majority of my peers. You are now a minority as compared to your peers. They seem to be occupied by things that are dramatically different than your love.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been around racing a long time because my father was into it, and that's kind of how I got involved. But it's so exciting to me, and I like tinkering with things. I like building things, taking things apart, putting them back together. That's exciting to me. So I think there's a lot of distractions right now in life with iPhones and iPads and internet, and if we could get more people involved in racing, that would be a good thing. But I think racing is a couple steps behind the technology that's on the street, and I think that might be a factor. But I think once racing catches up to what kids are seeing in their street cars and whatnot, I think that might help racing overall.
The whole smartphone technology and the age there, what would you think, or do you think it's on the horizon where a group, an organization, or an individual track could successfully integrate real-time smartphone technology with the outcome of what's unfolding on the other side of the fence, and that's the drivers that are strapped in the race cars?
That's a great question. That's probably the evolution of racing. I've seen a lot, even with Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year, having a little fan cam that people in the stands can have. So I think that's probably the next generation. Maybe having people vote during the race like they do in a NASCAR All-Star race to vote drivers in or whatnot might be a factor. So I think that's the next big thing. I think NASCAR is kind of on the forefront of it. And like I said, Indianapolis Motor Speedway too. At some point, we hope that it trickles down to local level racing as well. But that's a great question. I'm sure there's a lot of people trying to figure that out right now.
If you and I could come up with even one answer to that, we could go all the way to Indianapolis and Daytona and own cars in both divisions.
I think you're right about that. There's some smart folks there.
Your dad was from a generation where there was that direct connection. If you were an open wheel fan, your goal was to follow in the footsteps of a Denny Zimmerman, a Double O Joe, a Tony Stewart, to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indianapolis 500. That path has been disconnected now. Now you look at open wheel racers that, because of the Jeff Gordons of the world, have moved and gone to NASCAR. And it strikes me that that path for aspiring open wheel racers has become so severely constricted that that doesn't exist anymore. As a race fan, how would you cure all that?
I think unfortunately the economy is the biggest factor in that, because gone are the days where the guy with the most talent, I shouldn't say that, but I think less and less is the guy with the most talent who's proven himself in open wheel and learned to control his open wheel vehicle with his foot, with the throttle, and not spin the tires the whole race and save his equipment. I think some of that is lost because teams need big paychecks in order to run, and the folks that can bring money are a huge factor in getting rides. So I think that's unfortunate. I wish I had a solution for it, but I think the main issue is the cost of racing right now in the economy. And I wish I had a solution. I think everyone wishes they had a solution, but I think that's the biggest factor. And hopefully when the economy turns around and we can control some of the costs of racing, that might fix itself.
Specifically within NEMA, there's been some initiatives that have been executed over the course of the last few years. You've been following this and racing there for quite some time. Are you beginning to see tangible results with some of those cost containment attempts?
I think so. We've got a tire rule in place, limiting us to 3 purchased tires per week, which is a factor. One thing I'm proud of is our car it's about 14 years old. It's been kept in great shape, but built by Danny Drynan in '99. And it's passed through a number of people, and we have it now. And then our motor program through Dan Esslinger is electronic fuel-injected motor. Off the shelf, $20,000. It's a really nice piece. We won a championship with it. If you want to buy state-of-the-art, you're probably going to spend another $10,000 or $15,000 more.
At the least.
Yeah, at the least. So I'm sort of proud of that. We were kind of on the forefront of that with that motor, and with our car combination. We've been very successful the past year, so I think it can work, and I think that's probably a little bit more economical than some of the other options out there.
All right, final question. The great part about NEMA, they can run on the big tracks like the 5/8 at Thompson or the half mile at Stafford or at Oswego or any of those places, but you can get down to the bull rings like Waterford, you get down to the bull rings like Seekonk. As a driver, which do you prefer?
That's a great question. I think the quarter miles are a lot of fun to drive because it's kind of like elbows up all the time. You can kind of sling the car around a little bit. But probably my favorite track is Oswego, which is the complete opposite of that. So I don't mind the speed, and it's awfully fast. But there's something about Oswego. I mean, it's a special place for a lot of race car drivers. So that's nice. But the bull rings, you definitely have your hands full. So the political answer is I love them all.
Well done. Well played. Hey, good luck this year, and let's go get another championship.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
On YouTube, you may see one of the racing sensations has been this series that started this season called Short Track Racer. And I'm with the short track racer now, Sean Foster. And first of all, how in God's name did you come up with this idea to do this weekly webisode that you put out there for not only fans of Stafford Speedway and fans of Sean Foster, but racing fans across the country?
Am I holding that?
No, I can hold it.
All right, good.
Sit there.
The idea, I don't know, I had the idea for a while, I gotta say, except like the biggest problem was the technology wasn't there, like the in-car cameras and the what am I going to do, hold the giant VCR camera there? And so finally they started coming out with those GoPros and the small cameras, and I don't know, I always thought then that reality show, the Madhouse show, came about, and so it was kind of like, oh, this is pretty much similar to what I would like to do, throw a little comedy in it, and basically just appeal to non-racers, probably people who aren't interested in the sport quite yet. And I don't know, I thought that it would be pretty neat. One of the biggest things is trying to get the characteristics of a lot of the other drivers involved, and if you can do that, which there are a lot of cartoon characters, you take Woody Pitkat, type people like him who, he's I get along great with him, but he is a goofball. So you take like characters like that, and even like the arrogant people like Ted Christopher, who just have that, I'm racing and this is all I care about. Then you can really understand what these drivers go through, and it's not just a bunch of guys in different colored cars out there.
To me, it was fascinating when you started it. It became kind of a cult type thing where everybody locally, and then it expanded, and you started getting people corresponding with you. What's the farthest away in terms of short track racer followers that have been on that YouTube series?
I got a lot of emails from people all around. The ones that it was crazy, like there were a couple people, more than one person from New Zealand, I remembered, but I guess that's big sprint car racing world out there, and a lot of Canada, a lot of way up in Canada. But yeah, some people West Coast, once in a while I'll just get, hey, shout out from wherever, and it's like, it's neat. And actually, I had one of my crew members, Tony, his girlfriend was stationed in Afghanistan, and she was able to get the YouTube feeds. And when she was actually bringing like all of her, troops, whatever, all the people in her unit. Yes, thank you. And a lot of people out there were watching it, and they were into it, so it was kind of neat. So I gave her a shout out on one of the episodes. So yeah, it's cool how widespread it got. It's pretty neat.
You're what I call a track brat. You grew up around it, and of course, we all know about the success that your dad and the family has had in short track racing. But you're also an individual that has tried to not necessarily just make your mark by going to victory lane or being successful as a racer. You carry around a little notebook, and in that notebook and you're very protective of what you write down, but my point and why I wanted to share it is you have a passion for this sport that you're trying to figure out how to take it to the next level. And like so many of us, it's a bit frustrating because you're not quite sure what the next step is.
Yeah, it's let's just put it on the table. The sport is declining in popularity. You can see it on TV. You can see grandstands that aren't as full as they used to be. So, yeah, basically seeing that happen, and I don't want to see the sport die because of the passion that I have for it. And since I grew up with it, it's everyone I know is from it. It's the greatest people I know. And so, yeah, I started writing down ideas, promotional, what the sport could and should be. And basically that's, once I wrote everything down, it was difficult, like you said, to figure out, okay, I got all these ideas. Now I had pages and pages and pages that I still have of ideas. what am I supposed to do with this? You know, who is the right people to talk to? What is the right route to go to? Because the thing that I feel like I have is, not just the passion, not just the fact that I'm a racer, family-owned team. So I know what it's like from every aspect. I go to the races on a weekly basis, not just at Stafford. I bet you every week I was at a different track on a Saturday or Sunday event. And I'm also a fan. So I'm sitting there putting myself in the seat saying, what if this was my first time coming to a race? Would I want to come back? And that's kind of what we have to improve on. And, back to like the notebook thing, I think the thing that I have is vision as to where the sport should and could be. So if we're able to embrace the positives, fix the negatives, I would let my imagination run wild here, but I feel like it could like almost change the world.
Well, but see, there's where, and I'll let you all share in a conversation that we've had ongoing, he and I, there's where much the way you came up through the ranks as a driver and began to get to a level of confidence to where you're not afraid anymore to go wheel to wheel with a Teddy Christopher, is the same thing with that little notebook. There was a period of time where you were still second-guessing yourself with your outside-the-box ideas. It's just like being a racer. You have to get to a level of confidence to where just because it's in your notebook doesn't mean that it shouldn't be shared with others.
Very true. Very true. Who are the right people to share it with?
That's the question. And I think that that's something that all of us involved in the world of motorsports, that's what we deal with every day. And you look and say it's not just restricted to short tracks. Look at what NASCAR just went through with the total revamping of their chase for the Sprint Cup Championship.
Right. And they're trying. You can't take away from them. But, let's talk about that for a second, about the national level. Where is the problem? Is the problem in the point system? No, the problem is the week to week. Who's going to turn on the television and watch 500 laps or 300 laps of, let's face it, cars going around in circles, which, it's what we do, but there is so much more excitement in that, and, that's why the popularity is, there's reasons why the popularity is going away. It's not because of the point system. It adds a little bit of drama. Some people agree with it, some people don't. I can't say that I disagree with it. Some changes are good. Let's keep it contained, but, it's we got to get the popularity back in the sport, and fixing the race to race, the Sunday events, not looking at it as a whole, I think is the better route to go.
All right, before people that are watching this start to think that you and I are the bearers of gloom and doom, let's talk for a moment about the things that you see that you get amped up about in the world of motorsports.
It's all about the people around the racetrack. It's all about the excitement at the racetrack. It's a way of life. That's the cliche, but it really is. And that's why I have all this passion for. That's why I want these ideas to be used somehow, because it is the greatest sport in the world. I'll argue that all day, but it can be better. So, putting just the positives. Embrace those positives. Embrace the excitement of the sport and the people behind the scenes, and that's the route to go.
For those of you that haven't seen it, you got to catch an episode of Short Track Racer. This guy is the star, but it's not about you. That's the part that I think is so fascinating. You just open the door to the candy store, and we begin to understand a lot of the wackos that populate the short tracks across America.
Including yourself, Jack.
Thank you very much.
That's the big part of it, too. All about, we'll go back to like fan interaction and stuff. Well, there is a lot of wacky people in the sport that make it exciting. Take like baseball, for example. You watch on TV, and there's baseball players, and they game-winning home run, and hey, thank you, that type of thing. It's like, come on, just show a little excitement. Let's not go too far as to football, where they're dancing around in the end zone like a bunch of goons. But there's excitement here. There's auto racing is the best sport, and that's the reason why, because of the people involved in it.
We wish you the very best in a continuing effort, and start sharing that notebook. Who cares what other people think?
All right, we'll do. We'll. You're the one I have to talk to more about it then. But yeah, thank you. It's awesome being here.
All right, I'm going to ask you the question I've asked every racer. Can racing get here soon enough, considering the winter that we've all suffered through?
I got a couple of plow trucks. I'm ready to plow any track. If a promoter wants us to, we'll go out and have a slick 50. Let's get going. I'm ready.
Hey, listen, one of the good things is Speed Week is upon us, and a lot of people make that annual trek down to New Smyrna, Volusia County, and it's not just the racing that takes place at the big track, but all the peripheral racing that goes on. Are you going to be doing any of that?
Not this year. I haven't actually done it in a few years, but I've gone down many times, had a blast at more tracks than what I've just raced at. You know, we go everywhere, and I've never been to the big track. I've had tickets to it, never even gone. I've had more fun going to all the locals and just seeing everybody come down. It's like everybody from New England and everywhere goes down there, and that's where you see everybody. You see everybody more down there than up north. But
all right, let's talk a little bit about what's on your calendar for 2014.
Well, we're just going to I actually just talked to Vic, the car owner, Vic Miller, because we usually don't have any real plans. But this year we're just going to go out and run probably 3/4 of the ISMA schedule. We don't know if we're going to be running 2 cars much, mainly just with me. Bobby's setting something up at Star Speedway for the NEMA lights that I'm going to run in August. There's talk of possibly something at Oswego, but I haven't decided on that yet. So we're just going to go out and have some fun.
I want to go to this NEMA lights thing because somebody as accomplished as you, being romanced by something that is new, and let's face it, you're not totally my age, but you're getting a little long in the tooth, so to speak, and you're going to have to pit your reputation up against a lot of young kids. Does that excite you?
It does, actually, and I did have an opportunity to run them one other time at Seekonk Speedway. I think 3 years ago they did a Race of Champions. Yeah. And I had a blast. I've run midgets a few times, but that NEMA light class I think it's going to put on, I mean, I've watched them quite a few times, and it looks like great racing. I think they're a little more evenly matched, so you're going to get the fans involved with the end of the races there. There isn't going to be as many runaways, I don't think. I haven't watched it enough in the last year or so, but I had a blast at Seekonk with that car. I mean, we just went out, and it was, Joey Payne, Russ Wood, sorry, I can't remember who was there, but yeah, I mean, just it was a lot of fun. And against running a regular midget with all that power, I had just as much fun in that light car.
To me, what I think is fascinating is when a driver gets an opportunity like that, it takes you outside of your comfort zone. And yet there's an appreciation because you've got years of experience as a driver, so that you do recognize and appreciate that difference.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be challenged here and there. Sometimes not as much as we actually are challenged, but I just enjoy racing against whoever's there in whatever we have. I'm not one of those drivers that runs a lot of different cars, so it's easy for me to get out of my comfort zone. But what I've run so far has all been a good time. I've had great car owners when I get into them, and everybody's been helpful wherever I've been. But the NEMA series, I like it. I like this light series. I think it's the right way to go, and I'm just looking forward to running the car again.
Let's talk about the ISMA series for a moment, because it is one of the true traveling series, because geographically you go from one end of the Northeast all the way out to the Midwest and so forth. How does that tax a guy like you or your car owner? Because, I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of midweek hauling, and the price of gasoline isn't getting any cheaper.
No, it's not. I've actually I think it's at least 2 years, I've done a limited schedule, and they've run a car full-time with the likes of Lou Ciccone. They did this past year. The year before that was Robbie Summers, Mike Ordway Sr., it was too much for me running a marina in the summertime. I should have picked up a winter sport instead of a summer one, but I had too much fun with the supers. This year, the whole crew is going to take a little time off, because that tow to Michigan and coming back and working Monday morning, and the Canada trips and Ohio trips, it's a blast. But it's more for maybe a 20, 30-year-old instead of us that are over 30.
Long in the tooth. I've talked to some of the ISMA guys that run those wings, and it's one thing as a fan to sit there and watch it and the way it's articulated, and so that when it goes down the straightaway, it's out of the air. But when you need the downforce going to the corner, it banks up. Try and explain to somebody that's never strapped themselves in one of those cars what that feeling is like when you carry one of those things into a corner and that wing kicks in.
Wow. Well, my car, the way they're set up, we actually get, when the wing comes down, it actually picks the car up. So we're about 8 inches off the ground at the end of the straightaway.
By design, or is this one of the issues that you're facing all the time in a challenge?
No, it's supposed to be that way. Just the way the rear end set up, blah, 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 all that stuff. So we're actually about 8 inches off the ground at the end of the straightaway. So when I lift, the car comes down, usually hits, we usually spark, the wing pops up. I've been in this one car, number 11 for Vic Miller, for I think 18 years now. I trust it. I trust the crew. But there's still, every time I kind of giggle at the end of some of the straightaways where, oh, this isn't going to work. And it still does. So I don't know how to explain it to anybody else. But just get in a car and do something that isn't going to work. And if it miraculously does, that's most every lap.
Chris, we wish you the very best, and it's good to see you. And park those snow plows, will you? We don't need any more snow, okay?
I'm going to bring them right to Star Speedway and start plowing right now.
Racers Expo, we have got the length and the breadth of people that are aspiring race car drivers, from the veterans to some newcomers that in many cases are already veterans. First of all, tell me your name.
My name is Mikey Toner Jr.
All right, Mikey, and your name?
Madison Birchall.
All right, and Mikey, what level do you compete at?
I compete at Seekonk Speedway in Seekonk, Massachusetts at the Sierra 600 League.
And you?
I compete at the same place, same track, everything, just I'm a class up, which is Sierra 750s.
You notice she said she's a class up. Is that a good thing, or are you aspiring to get up to her class and beat her?
To beat her, definitely. That would be funny, but that would also be competition, because, I mean, you win some, you lose some. That's racing.
You know, it's not that many years ago where racing was predominantly a guy's sport. Now, you're too young to remember those days. Since you've been a youngster, it's been open one way or the other. And I remember Sarah Fisher, a good friend of mine, once said that a race car doesn't know the difference. How about your friends? When they find out that you race a race car on the weekend, how do your girlfriends react to that?
Well, at first they're like, okay, whatever, and then they'll hear something about me by somebody else, and they'll get surprised, and they're like, hey, I didn't know that. I'm like, I told you, but I guess you didn't know. And then I'll just like talk to them about it, and they'll just be in shock.
What would you like to do with your racing career?
Definitely bring it up as much as I can, like as far as I can.
Do you have one female race car driver that you look up to?
Well, I mean, Danica, I guess, because she's the highest up that I've seen so far.
Strikes me, though, that there's a movement afoot with young female drivers where Danica is kind of passé a little bit. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, if I ever get to like race against her, I would try to beat her as much as possible. But I would probably be the rookie, so I don't know.
She scares me.
No. I mean, you can't really say that it's a girl sport or a guy sport, because I've seen Sierra drivers that are girls that have done better than most boys in the series. So I wouldn't say that it's a male dominant sport, but just that it's really hard, and the women need to work really hard at it to get up to those big leagues in NASCAR and to compete against those men.
Is that where you want to go? Big leagues in NASCAR?
I'd love to be in the big leagues in NASCAR, but for right now at my league, I just want to do the best that I can, and I will drive anything that anybody gives me, because no matter what, it's just a chance that I get to have fun and do what I love.
All right, I'm going to ask both of you, and I'll start with you. Are there moments when you're inside the race car where all the blood rushes out of your brain and you even surprise yourself with the way you act?
Definitely. Like, it's just no second guessing. You think of something to do and you do it, even if it works or not. You can get extremely mad at yourself, or you can be so proud at yourself. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, you just go for it.
Well, that wraps up our interviews from the Racers Expo. Next week, we're going to have a really good show. We're going to have a very entertaining interview for everyone that races or doesn't race. So we'll see you next week.